Steve Bannon is someone who has been really controversial from the day that he walked into the White House, and there have been rumors over time about his potential departure, whether the president was getting frustrated with him, and really we saw a lot of that pressure come to a head in the last couple of weeks, and it was a combination of factors. It was John Kelly's arrival as chief of staff, John Kelly being someone who really wants to bring some order and discipline to the White House and is really skeptical of people like Bannon, who essentially have operated kind of independently there with their own staff, pushing their own agenda. Then you had Steve Bannon really going out of his way to show that he was not going to be controlled. He was doing interviews on the record this week where he was saying things that were against what other administration officials were saying, undermining things that the president himself was saying. That's generally a bad spot to be in when you are a staffer in the West Wing. And then the third piece of this is just that there has been constant speculation about who is behind leaks, and a lot of people in the White House have looked to Steve Bannon. He's someone who has deep relationships with the media. He is a former conservative media executive himself, and he is very savvy when it comes to dealing with the press. And so all of those factors coming into play at this one time, and then being against the backdrop of the crisis that we saw in the White House with the response from the president to Charlottesville, just left Bannon in a really untenable position. Bannon is someone who has been around Trump for quite some time. He was there early when Trump was considering a presidential bid. He is really the person who has shaped a lot of what the president believes on issues like immigration, which became so central to Trump's campaign and to his message as president. And this will remove someone in the White House who really speaks to the views of the base. Trump's base voters are very loyal. They believe in the things that Trump has been saying, and they believe in the things that Bannon has been pushing for a long time before he got hooked up with Trump. So this removes one person from the White House who can really speak to the base issues, and it is a question of who Trump will rely on now for policy. Does he look toward Mike Pence, who comes from a more traditional conservative background? Does he look to John Kelly, who may be a successful military general but isn't a policy person and isn't a political person? Does he look to people like Jared and Ivanka, Gary Cohn, Dina Powell? These are people who, for their most part, are actually Democrats, are more in line with what Democrats believe in. And does he gravitate there? I think it's a huge unknown where this takes the presidency at this point. The biggest focus, though, for all of these folks in the White House is to get things just under control before we can even start talking about policy, before we can even start talking about where they'll end up ideologically. Can they right this ship? This is a really tenuous position for the president. He is seeing Republicans, business leaders, and others turn their backs on him, be willing to say things about a sitting president that are pretty astounding, and he, with one firing of Steve Bannon, is not going to solve that problem.